Hello, y'all. My name is Ala Ochumare, and I am coming to you as youth coordinator for the New Haven Pride Center. And we have a panel today, and I am joined by three panel experts. And our panel is on youth intersectionality. So we're joined today by Mia. Raise your hand. Wave, Mia. Jeremy. Wave, Narleen. Wave. Mia's pronouns are she, and her, and they. Jeremy's pronouns are they, them. And Narleen pronouns are she and her. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get into really in depth into our panel, I'm just gonna ask y'all to introduce yourselves, let the audience know who you are, who you be, what you do, and your age. Let's start with you, Mia.
Oh, me? I'm Mia. She already said my pronouns. I'm 19. I'm a college student. I organize on Tuesdays sometimes, I do that. I don't know what else to say about me.
Okay.
I breathe. Wait, I'm also black as fuck. You need to remember that I'm black as fuck, period. And queer as fuck, period. And poor as fuck, but we're gonna change that pretty soon.
I felt that.
Pretty soon.
Thank you. And that's what this intersectionality panel is all about, the intersections of us.
Period.
Okay, Jeremy, may you introduce yourselves and restate your pronouns for those who do not have them.
Yeah, so my name is Jeremy Cajigas, pronouns they, them, theirs. I am a New Haven resident. I work for the Citywide Youth Coalition as the school organizer. I'm also the co-creator and co-director of Connecticut's first and only Black and Brown queer camp. And I'm an Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean, Black as fuck too. Definitely poor too, we there. But overall, we live life loud and proud, period.
Cause we out here.
My name is Narleen. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm from Waterbury. I'm 17 years old. I go to John F. Kennedy High School. I do a lot of gay things, community organizing things, a lot of gay. It's mostly a bunch of gay shit. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I do a lot of gay shit too, and that actually leads me to my next question, and to set the tone and ground ourselves in why we're here with this panel today. My question is posed for all three of you. What does your intersectionality look like, and how does your queerness play into your intersectionality? Who would like to go first? Would anyone want to go first?
I can start. So as I mentioned before, right, I am Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean, while I'm also lower class, while I'm also a community organizer, so I sit at the I'm also trans femme, I'm also fat, so I sit at a lot of unique intersections, right? And my queerness is very present in all of them. And the day that my queerness isn't present, please question me and call me out. But just being queer is at the forefront of every one of my intersections, regardless of which one we choose to speak of.
Thank you. That was really beautiful. Narleen, would you like to go? What does your intersectionality look like, and how does your queerness play into it for you?
I feel like I have a lot of intersecting identities. I'm Hispanic, I'm a young person, I'm queer. There's just so many things that kind of, obviously, intersectional, sorry, I keep forgetting what it's called. Our identities intersect in various ways, and I feel like my queerness does show up in all of them predominantly, but I do have trouble sometimes in a lot of Hispanic places. I kind of tend to hide my queerness because I'm kind of scared of the backlash that my community will place upon me if they know I am queer, or if I'm visibly queer, or if I'm talking about a certain thing. So I do struggle with being 100% myself, identities up front when I enter a room. But that doesn't mean that I'm not proud of it. Like, I'm not proud of my identities. I am proud of my identities.
Yeah, and that's something that's very significant to all of us on this panel, because we're all people of color and queer, and definitely have that experience in various ways. Mia, darling, unmute yourself and tell me, what does your intersectionality look like, and how does your queerness play into it?
So I'm FGLI, which is an acronym for First Gen Low Income. It's mostly used if you're in college. You're probably not gonna hear it if you're not in college. Blasty, it's a tough term, but which is like, what poor people of color be a part of when they're at Tufts. Queer, femme, sometimes, mask, sometimes. Black as fuck, as you can tell by my obvious black features. Poor as fuck. Like, words cannot stress how poor I am. Like, I'm extremely poor, and it's really ghetto, but queer, yeah. Caribbean, I think owning my Caribbean identity is also really important. Yeah, I think that's me. Probably a bunch of other things that I can't remember, but we'll come up as we talk.
We'll drag them out of you before the time is as I'm taking notes, and I want to share with our audience that as you see me writing, I'm just taking notes on what our panelist says to just ask more in-depth questions. And something already came up for me with us investigating our intersections. Something that Jeremy stated, being queer is at the forefront of your intersections and how you are and who you be. And if you're not being queer, then check you. And I feel that. I think that is that's a beautiful thing. And then Narlene, you pointed out that your queerness always shows up and it's like always there, except when you're in your community and you struggle like with being able to balance like your queerness being like out, super out, like we may be in other spaces. And then Mia, you denoted with being a Caribbean person and how that is very important for you. And we're all kind of in the island somewhere. Like, we're all a person of color. I have Bayesian roots. I'm Black. Jeremy, you're Puerto Rican. Like, so we all have to deal with our queerness and our intersections in our personal communities. And being young people, y'all are still in development of how to figure out how to do that. But I would just say, as a 36-year-old woman, I still haven't figured out how to always do that. So I think it's just always gonna suck until we have more exposure in our communities around queerness and acceptance. So what, if you had one thing that you use to save you, to remind you, to like really help you when you're in your intersection, when you're in your community, what is it? Do you know what it is? Is it something that you concretely have, or is it something that you're still investigating? Narveen, why are you laughing?
Because I'm trying to figure out what it is for me.
Yeah, word, same. And take your time. And I'm gonna throw it to Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think it's anything like that's concrete, right? I think oftentimes what reminds me to be authentically myself in any space that I am, right? For me, a lot that comes up is like just thinking back to the struggles that our Black and Brown queer ancestors really had to go through to get us to this place, right? We're not at full acceptance, and I don't think we'll ever be. But we are able to move a lot more freely within our communities than they were, right? And yeah, that presents its own dangers at times, but I think the dangers that people like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera faced are not exactly some of the same dangers that we're facing today, right? And I think it's because of their struggle and their fight that to this day, in whatever space I am, I'm constantly reminding myself to live in my full authentic truth, even if it makes others uncomfortable.
Ashe, yes. Be authentically you. Mia, do you have even if it's just one thing that you're using right now, especially, and I'll be leading into that next question, so I'll wait for that. But do you have anything that you use as your saving grace?
I mean, I think, okay, something I forgot to mention is I'm also part of a house. Like, I'm part of Casa Lombardi. So, like, you know, we out here, period. So I think having that connection with my house is really important. Also, yes, I'm gonna expose my family. I have to like, I do check-ins with like my mother every single day. And if I go more than 4 hours without talking to her, she blows up my phone and gets mad at me and books tickets to come up to Massachusetts to come see me. So I don't have a choice because the girl needs to make sure that they're always talking to me. And like, it's really funny, but it's also like, I think, jokes aside, like it's a great reminder that like I have folks at home, and it's a great reminder that like to have those like conversations every day, I think is a great way for me to be reminded of where I come from, and being reminded that like your feelings are valid, like you're dealing, because like my school's extremely white. The other thing is that like I go to a very white school and a very wealthy school, and I've never dealt with that much like generational wealth. I've never seen it before until now, so I always need to be reminded. And I think connections with my house and my family are really paramount to that. And like I said, she's gonna kill me if I don't, so I don't have a choice. So, and Jeremy can add on to that, but you know,
And I
want to.
Go back after Gnarly answers this question, and I'm gonna ask the question as to what is a house and like what is a mother, because for those of us in our audience who are like looking for family and figuring that out, they may not know what a house mother is, and that is different from a mother. So we're gonna come back to you, Mia and Jeremy, to explain that. But Narlene, what's your saving grace, my love?
Honestly, I was gonna ask you to repeat the question because I don't think it fully clicked for me. I'm sorry.
So, like, what's your saving grace? Like, what do you use to, it's bees around here, sorry. What do you use to help you get through, to help you get by, especially when you're in your like personal community where you may not be able to be all the way out and proud? Like, what do you use as your saving grace?
I feel like throughout the years, literature has been the backbone of literally everything for me. And without it, I definitely don't think I would be where I am today. Like writers like Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, Samuel Delaney, like all of this queer literature has helped me kind of evolve into like and analyzing these texts over and over again. Like it's like every time I read another piece of literature that has to do with like queer theory or just race or classism or whatever, I feel like it reminds me of who I am. And so when I step into a space, I feel like I'm 100% genuinely myself again, if I ever need a reminder about who I am.
Oh, thank you for that. I had to switch my audio. I'm sorry, y'all. Internet, I'm telling you, COVID really just make you miss like really being able to do these things in person and stuff like that. It really does. Like, I really miss all of y'all so much.
Or you telling?
Yeah, it's like really crazy. And so I want to highlight what you said. And so, Narlene, I would say that I kind of have the same as a young person when I was growing up and coming out. It just was not in my age group. It was just not a lot of out queer people, and if they were, I just didn't know where they were. Like, I wasn't able to be in my community. So like, and my queerness looked different because I was bi. And so when I would try to have that conversation, people would be like, oh, you just confused, and you like, you know, just like, and then so it would just be like, and you're straight anyway, so it's like kind of no point in us having this conversation, you're just stupid. And so I read a lot. Like I found, and when I would find a queer person in a book, even if in character, I would be like,
oh my God,
like so excited. So excited. And that was really like, until I got older, I didn't have a queer family, and literature and like movies and like finding queer shit, and like find like my uncles and aunts who were gay, like when they would come over, I would just be at the house like around the
trying to look for stuff,
right? Like, what do you got? Like, what do you like? You got your bangs out? Like, my mom let you in the house and you got bangs? Like, it's a really like, and so I grasped for those things. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this panel, was one, to identify other young leaders that are out here that are doing stuff, and like let y'all tell y'all story of how other young people are feeling. You either might have felt like that or you're feeling like that now. And you just got to push on. Like, we just have to keep pushing on. And so I want to go back to the question, and I want to pose this for all three of y'all, and so we can look and see what houses look like and what it means to find gay family. Mia, you said something about you had a mother and that you were in a house, but you know, some people might hear that and think that you're talking about your birth mother. Could you explain, like, what is a house? What is a mother? And who is your mother?
Oh my God, over you. And this is gonna probably be a really, really bad explanation. A house is basically like a network of people who come from who like cannot be with their like traditional family, whether it's because the families aren't safe or they're orphaned, or it's just like they don't have a support system like they should have. And usually it's comprised of queer people of color. And in this definition, I'm including like trans people of color, non-binary folk, and the like. And it's supposed to be like a traditional house. We have a house mother and we have a house father. And then we have kids. They have kids, and then they in turn have their own kids. In some cases they don't. These networks usually last like for a long time, if not forever. Like, if someone moves like away, like they're still, and they come back, like they're still considered like part of the house, unless like something happens and like they're not part of the house anymore. But like that really happens, so it doesn't really matter. I always say like watching Paris is Burning, watching Kiki, watching Pose are like 3 like Bibles so far of like house culture and ball culture. Like, if you want to learn about that culture, like, you go to them. You start with those 3. And of the 3, I would start with Paris is Burning and then work your way up until modern day. That's just me personally, but no, that's not even there. But basically, it's supposed to be like a loving system, and it's people who give you the love and affection and nurturing and protection, resources that your like biological family could not give you. So like, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it's like, I'm not in contact with my biological family anymore. So when I started organizing, like, I have my chosen family, and like Jeremy is my house mother, right? Technically it's Jeremy and Ma, but like, we don't talk about that. They're just both my mothers for all intents and purposes. And I have my own kids who are coming up with me to Tufts next year, actually, which is really funny. And like I give them protection. Yeah, it's great. I give them protection and advice if they need it, financial resources if possible. And those are the same things that like Jeremy and Ma give me if needed. Oh, my, by the way, for the audience members who don't know. We call her Mom. And we call Jeremy Mother. So and like if I need something, it's like we're gonna band together and figure out like how to like best support you, whether it's emotional, whether it's financial, whether it's physical, whether I need a goddamn hug and I'm tired of white people and I need to like, or I'm in college and like I'm tired of white people and I need to just be like, I need to call up Mother and be like, Mother, I'm about to get suspended for saying some slick shit. You got about 10 seconds to say something to stop me, or I'm gonna get suspended. Like, just straight up, like and I don't know why y'all are laughing. Jeremy, tell me I'm lying. Tell me I'm lying. Tell me I'm lying. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, and like if I need like I'll get like random cash apps from Jeremy from Mother for no fucking reason, just like because I love you. Like, and I don't even ask for it, and I tell her not to do it, but she be doing it anyway, and she be like, and it's so, but I appreciate it a lot. Just like these are some examples. Like, I'm not gonna give spoilers about like Pose or something, but like, if you watch like Pose, like
Pose is so good.
Houses, Pose, yeah, like some houses have like bases, like and like it's like a real house or apartment or whatever the case may be. Some of us don't have those resources yet, but we're trying to get those resources, but we're still a house because we have that connection of love and support whenever we can give it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And houses can be of any size, right? So like House of Lombardi, I would say is pretty small, but like House of Evangelista, House of Electra is like far bigger and have more resources than us, for example. Or like House of La Beja, House of Ninja, like those houses are like more well-known houses. They have more resources and they have like, you know, they have things that like maybe other up-and-coming houses wouldn't have, if that makes sense. And someone can feel free to jump in on that. That was a very all over the place explanation of houses, but you know.
I mean, it was a good explanation. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll just add that historically speaking, right, houses were started within the ballroom community, and the mother position is usually always filled either by a trans woman or a femme gay male, or a femme gender nonconforming person. And the house mother position is a very important one, right, because your job is to literally be a motherly figure in the lives of young people that have been through hell and back and have struggled, right? And your job as a parent now is to fix the damage that the previous parents committed, right? So I would say that the mother position is a very unique one, and also a very laborious one, but it gives, like me as a mother, it gives me so much joy just to see the relationships I have with my kids, right? And as Mia said, as a mother, your job is to be there and support in every single way possible, whether spiritually, financially, emotionally, whatever it is, right? As a mother, you just do that. But a house is literally a network of support for queer people who have been rejected by their own biological families.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And who could start a house, y'all?
I would say anybody. If you have a network of people that you genuinely love and support, start a house. Do that.
Right. Yeah. If you got some friends and like y'all taking care of each other, and you know, it doesn't always have to start off as a house, but some of the best ones form that way. You know what I mean? And it's important to like just find your family. If young people don't get anything out of the work that I try to do, I just try to help people like just identify a family, and get a family member, get somebody that even if they could just call and be like, yo, I did this thing, someone would be really excited genuinely for them.
And I would just add that not all houses are ballroom-centered houses either, right? Like, not all houses go to compete in balls. There are houses that generally exist as a network of support outside of ballroom and don't compete in any balls. So don't feel pressure to join a house that's a part of a ball. Like, feel free to look outside of ballroom to join a house as well if ballroom isn't your thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's the good thing about being queer is we have a spectrum and we can live that thing. And if it's not there, get a friend and make that shit. And so that leads me to my favorite question that I ask queer people because I'm always like looking for new queer heroes myself. Like, who are y'all queer heroes? Like, who or queer adjacent? Because I don't know if like Bell Hooks ever came out and was like all the way queer, said she was queer, but like she's super queer adjacent, you know, if she ain't. But anyway, who are your queer heroes?
I can start. As a queer femme community organizer, I always look up to the work that Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera did with their STARS program that they started up. I also absolutely love and adore Audre Lorde, like love. But yeah, to me, those are like my tops currently though, like someone who's like currently alive and I friggin' adore and love for the work that they do. Angelica Ross she plays Candy on Pose. I absolutely love the work that she does, like absolutely.
Can we just say the whole cast of Pose?
Honestly.
Like, I don't think you understand. Like, before I got on, I was doing makeup with like Mother before this, but like I was literally like watching a rerun of a scene in Pose where like Dominique Jackson's character goes against MJ Rodriguez's character in a ball, and it's like 6-inch heels one from season 1. Spoilers, sorry. You need to hear it. Whatever. Watch the show. It's amazing. And I just was watching that scene over and over and over again because like I love the whole I love the whole cast, but I just really love that scene and I love the competition and I love how like the love for those characters they have towards each other comes out even when they're competing against each other. And also I love icons, man. Also, I mean, totally unrelated, there's a Black trans woman from Hearing Youth Voices, and her name is Erica, and I look up to her because I think she's an amazing artist. I think she's an amazing organizer. I think she is badass motherfucker who's out here, like, doing what she can in this economy. I think, and she's, like, a big sister to me, and I love her. So, like, shout out to her as well for being dope as fuck. Also, stream her music. And put money in Black trans.
Her music is really good. I don't think that I have one specific queer icon. I think all of them throughout history just kind of played a role in me, obviously. But I don't know, I feel like a lot of grassroots community organizers that I know personally, I feel like they are my queer icon. Like they're constantly putting work back into the community. They love their community and they'd honest to God do anything for us, for young people, and like just I feel like they always are just there and they always care and they put so much love towards their communities, and I feel like it's very adamant and it shows within their work. Like you and Jeremy, like it's just
Thank you.
yeah, and like Juan Carlos, like
Yes, JC.
Yeah. Like no, seriously, because I mean, we all know Audre Lorde is a queer icon. We all know Bell Hooks is a queer icon. Like, we all know this, but I feel like, yes, like they are queer icons, but I feel like we also need to give appreciation and attention to those people who are doing work right now within our communities, working their asses off for us and for our community. So that's just.
Thank you, love.
Thank you, Narlene. We love you too, boo. Okay, cool. And that so I have what that actually leads me in. I'm glad I ended with you, Narlene. That leads me into my person specific question. And Jeremy, I'm gonna go with you. in my opinion, Jeremy, the work you do is very political. As a person who organizes students, but also like develops young people into leaders, as well as developing queer camp, those intersections matched up for me with the development of queer camp. How did you, and right, like I know that you came to me and I'm part of the people that started it with you, but right, how did you decide to not just do another summer camp for just Black and brown youth like all the rest of the work you do, which is not to dismiss it, but what made you bring in your intersection of queerness? What added that aspect for you for queer camp?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been doing community organizing work for about 5, 6 years now, right? And my focus has always been youth organizing and specifically Black and brown youth organizing. However, when I started this work, I wasn't out. And I started this work denying my queerness completely, right? And it was because of being in community and community organizing that I was able to actually come out at the age of 16. Once I did come out, I started to just look at the work I was doing and see how could I fit my queerness into everything I was doing, right? Because I was at that place where I was like, I'm finally out and queer, and I'm gonna make sure everything that I do incorporates my queerness. About 2 years ago, yeah, about 2, 3 years ago, because we're in our third year of queer camp this summer. So about 2, 3 years ago, Juan Carlos approached me and he was like, "Hey, do you want to do internship with Planned Parenthood?" You know, and me and Juan Carlos linked up, and through that internship, we were able to come up with a queer camp that was specifically for Black and brown youth, right? And when we say Black and brown, we literally mean every person of color, whether you Chinese, you Middle Eastern, whatever. Like, we wanted all Black and brown people to be included. And we wanted the camp to be really focused on developing queer organizers to, after camp, be able to go out and really create some systemic change, right? That work over the last 2, 3 years now has been central to like what I do. I literally, the day queer camp is over, we're all like as facilitators on the phone, like, all right, how do we make next year better? Where do we gotta go to start fundraising, right? Because the space is so healing just to be in as a queer person, to be able to be in community and not only talk about our issues as queer people, but to talk about all our other intersections that we come across as queer people of color. That space is really just a space that is super liberating, and that as a facilitator myself, like, it's just a healing place to be in. Like, I leave that space like, damn, I can't wait for next year.
Yeah. And right, I met both Mia and Narlene through queer camp, which was so amazing. And that leads me into your question, Narlene. I met you in our first year of queer camp. And when I met you our first year of queer camp, right? And then last year's queer camp, you were like, your personality was the same, but you were like very vibrant second year queer camp. So for me, I always believe like queer camp did it. So was there something that happened for you during queer camp, after queer camp, that helped you be able, you like are so vibrant and you know your shit and you knew it during the first year of queer camp, but we were like, talk to us. And now like you were co-facilitating second year. What was that growth like?
It was something that was very unexpected, and honestly, I didn't even know that I was that shy. Was I shy? Like, really?
The first couple of days, by the end of queer camp, you was running it, but like the first couple of days, you was like,
oh. I feel like queer camp happened at the most perfect time for me. The year before, I went to a predominantly white institution, and honestly, that there's just so many traumatizing experiences that went along with that. And I feel like just having a space where it was okay to be queer and a person of color, and I felt safe, which is like very abnormal for obviously queer people of color, because we never really have spaces where we can interact with one another in just such a freeing way. So just knowing that I had this little community in New Haven, and like I could just go to whenever something was wrong, or when I just felt like when I was in my own like thoughts, or just, I don't know, it would happen so perfectly, because I feel like after queer camp I started to get more into reading and like more into community organizing in Waterbury, and I met friends in New Haven, and then it just opened a whole new door for me.
Yeah.
It really changed who I am.
Yeah, definitely added to it, because last year's queer camp, I was like, I think I said something to Jeremy. I was like, Narlene, running this stuff.
Yeah, I definitely became more comfortable with myself.
Yeah, like, yes, it was an amazing, beautiful thing to see. Mia, that leads me into a question about queer camp, because so our first year of queer camp, you introduced, and mind you, this is coming from like the organizer, right? Like the person who's been organizing. You introduced and really explained to me what the process, like who an asexual person is, and what that means, besides like something like the stereotypes that we all kind of know. And so like as a facilitator of queer camp, right, like I was learning every day. Like I remember when we were talking and breaking those portions
Me
down.
too.
And it was like the best part of queer camp, because so many other young queer people was like, wait, is that me? Oh, I thought I was is that me? Like, and like, was that me? And I felt it was like really encouraging for me to see a young person that was so versed and was able to share that. And so you came to queer camp with that knowledge. What allowed you to be knowledgeable about yourself at a younger age, and not such a young age, but like at a younger age? Like what has allowed you to delve into your queerness at like the way you do?
For me, right, like, and I have no shame in saying this, I got most of my knowledge off of Tumblr. Like, I'm not like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't think people underestimate Tumblr. Like, before FOSTA SESTA, Tumblr was like the place to be. Now it's trash, but so like, I really learned about like asexuality, demisexuality, androsexuality, livosexuality, cupiosexuality, like all of these, and a bunch of other terms, right? That I can explain if you need me to. And like aromantic, gray romantic, like, and I had a friend who was a white queer that I had known for years, and they were also aro ace. No shade to that person, but they were also aro ace, and I learned from them about that term. I think for me it was really, because like all the knowledge I got about the ace spectrum, I learned from white asexual people, because all my ace friends, and there's very few of us, are white. I've yet to meet a person of color who's ace, unfortunately, or on the spectrum. But I think like gaining that knowledge makes me kind of, I feel like different, like a different type of queer. I don't know how to explain it, because it's like when you think of queer, it's usually like the big four of like LGBT, and then a lot of people don't realize there's Q, I, A, P, and so on and so forth after that, right? And kind of like having to contend with like, well, asexuals aren't really queer, they're basically straight, and like demisexual people don't exist, and like all this bullshit that like still drives me nuts, and I still have these arguments with people. It's like drives me deeper into the queer work that I do, because like my work, like I'm not going to speak for other people, but like I organize to liberate people, right? I organize to like free people. Like I consider myself a freedom fighter. And I'm a big believer in like, we're not free until everybody's free. And it's like, everybody includes people on the ace spectrum. Everybody includes people who are Black and ace. And like on that spectrum, and Black and arrow, because I include that as well. So my work is garnered more towards like those of us who are not as seen, even within the hierarchy of queerness, because a lot of us, even within the queer community, are really not seen, and I think that we deserve to be seen.
Yes, thank you for that. And that was one of the important reasons for me to ask that question, because as younger people, right, like when you're younger, like, I mean, when I first came out, I was bi. I think that sexuality and all those things are a spectrum, and so I struggle with like attaching myself to a identity, because I think that leaves out other things, like, you know, like I think that all of these things are spectrums and stuff. And so sometimes what I've experienced when I'm working with young people who are still able to be in some kind of connection with their biological family, and like I'm trying to do some restorative justice work in that, a lot of times I hear like, well, when he said that he was a this, and then now he thinks he's trans, and if you can't keep changing and all these things, and I find that older people, especially boomers and above, really struggle with our spectrum and the spectrum of queerness. But when I'm also do work in our queer community, and sometimes queer people struggle with our spectrum. And what I've noticed is that the older, unfortunately, there's things in there, but the older you are, the harder it is for certain people to grasp, whether they're super queer or not, the spectrum of queerness. How do y'all, right, because you're at varying degrees of youngness where you still have to have some kind of people trying to decide for you, right? Like, how do you, and how are you able to deal with being on the spectrum, and maybe like your queerness looks different now than it looked when you first came out, or those things? Like, how are you okay with your shifting queerness? And I ask that for young people who are going to listen to this later, who may be dealing with the same thing. How could they help better understand or be okay with when their stuff is shifting?
So, right? So, like, first thing, there's this myth, I don't know how it started, I think white gaze, TM started it, that, like, once you decide sexuality, that's it forever, and you can't be anything else, and white supremacy is a hell of a drug. Anyway, and that's complete bullshit. Like, I want to make sure we have it on the table. Like, your sexuality and your gender identity, for that matter, is whatever the fuck you want it to be. And if people tell you otherwise, they are stupid and they need to go into the bin. So like, sexuality is fluid. I feel like more people just don't know that. But like, I am here to tell you today that sexuality and gender are two separate things, but they can both be fluid. They are both fluid. Right? So like, when I started out, like, when I was still identified as heterosexual and I wanted to like do queer work and I wanted to be like an ally to the queer community, and then I was like, yeah, I don't do straight people shit. And I had to figure that out for myself. And when I did, I was like, oh shit, I'm asexual. Wow, that's cute. And then I was asexual for a while. And then I was like, I don't like this term. We're going to try demisexual. And then when I went to, if anyone has heard of True Colors, I did a whole thing about intersectionality and like included being demisexual. And that was a whole thing. And I think at some point during that conference, I think junior year, no, that's a lie. No, yeah. Like, I realized that I might be demi-romantic. And then I dated a girl, and it was the greatest experience I ever had in my life. She's so amazing, and we're still friends. And then I was like, nope, I'm gray romantic. And then now that, like, I'm in college, right? Like, now I'm just like, actually, I might be aromantic, but demisexual. And that's where we're at right now, right? And I might be Cupid sexual. And those are terms that like I play around with. And it's kind of like trying on clothes. It's like figuring out what works best for you, and if it doesn't work for you, you find something new, assuming you have the money to do it under capitalism. But that's another conversation. So listen, like if you don't, then I don't know what to tell you, but like if you don't like it, you know, you can try on new terms, and there are new terms coming out with sexuality like all the time, you know what I mean? So I think just like figuring out what works best for you is great. And also, you don't need to have a label. Like, another big myth is that like everyone needs to have a label. Like, what are you? Are you a girl? Are you a boy? Are you straight? Like, what are, like, you don't need to do that. First of all, that's intrusive and rude as fuck. Second of all, that's not courteous, because you don't say that to people who are straight and cis. Anyway, but I digress. Like, if you don't want to use pronouns, you don't have to use pronouns. If you don't want to like use a label, you don't have to use a label. Like, as long as you're you and you're not murdering people, you should be fine, theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But TLDR is that just like sexuality and gender are fluid things, and they can be whatever you want them to be. And if you don't like the terms that are out there, you just make a new one. And the queer community will catch on, probably. Or the white queer community will just like co-opt the term and then say they invented it, even though it was clearly invented by Black and brown people, usually trans people. But I digress. Anyway, yeah.
Narlene.
Narlene, what is funny? You're just sitting here laughing.
Because y'all so funny.
So what I said.
Sexuality and gender, they're so fluid. Honestly, like, I mean, I used to identify as bi, and even the thought of that just makes me laugh. Then I thought I was a lesbian. I didn't really like the word lesbian. I don't really know why. I think it has something to do with gender stuff. Still haven't figured any of that out yet. Like I said, it's fluid. We have time to figure it out. Like, there's so much time. It's just, I feel like, I mean, for me personally, as someone who like struggles with their gender dysphoria and like just like imposter syndrome in general, like, it's very hard to kind of just come to one identity, one concise thing that I am. Like, I feel like that's just like not fair to me in a way. So that's why I feel like queer is just this perfect identity, because it's literally whatever you want it to mean. It's just fluid. And so I don't know, I feel like if you're struggling, then that's perfectly okay, but there's no pressure to have this one concrete label for the rest of your life, because I don't think that's fair to you as an individual. And just like you're obviously, you change, life changes you. Like, you're not going to have one. I mean, if you do, that's great, but I don't think it's realistic for someone to just identify as one thing for the rest of their life without really kind of like questioning it at all. And it's okay if you question it. I feel like that's okay. It's normal. Don't be freaked out. Like, I remember I felt kind of like, I was like, wait, what? Like, when it came to my gender and my sexuality, and I just kind of asked myself why, when I know that sexuality and gender, like, spectrums, like, if I already know this, then there's no need to have that anxiety in the back of my head, you know? So I feel like with everyone it's different, but for me, I'm just living my life.
Yes.
I mean, I'm queer, I'm living my life. Like, there's not much to it. Like,
Jeremy, did you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, so I agree, right, that gender and sexuality are super fluid. But gender and sexuality is something that I've struggled from the very beginning of coming out, right? And like, I'm talking about struggle to the point that like I've cried to some of you guys about like my struggle with gender and sexuality, right? And like the fact that just because I grew up a Pentecostal Christian, as I continue to explore gender and sexuality, there's a guilt that comes with it, right, from the indoctrination that I received in church. So there's a constant guilt that I carry with me because to this day I still identify as a Christian, right? However, what I was indoctrinated to believe, and I'm still trying to unlearn a lot of that, I still carry it with me. So as I continue to explore gender and sexuality, I really do struggle with it, and struggle to be comfortable. But I will say I'm in a place right now where like I'm queer, period, right? And like that's where I stand because I feel like queer is such an umbrella term, right? That brings so much into it. And I'm also a person who hates a lot of labels, like really do, right? But I also like to acknowledge them because I feel like acknowledging some of those labels brings your full self into the room at the same time.
Wait, I didn't hear one part. What did you say you had a problem with?
Labels.
So I just labels,
yeah.
Um, but because I feel like acknowledging our labels is also very important because who we are is very politicized, right? And our life is politics, right? So when we're doing a lot of our work, it's important to recognize those labels. But now, like, I'm in a place where I'm like, yes, I'm queer, I'm femme, and that's that, and that's period, and there's nothing more to it. So yeah, I think being able to be comfortable with your gender and your identity and getting to that place, it's a long journey. And it's definitely something that takes a lot of patience with yourself. It takes a lot of patience with those around you who are also still trying to learn about the fluidity that comes with gender and sexuality. Um, and it's a process that you have to love yourself through that process in order to feel fully comfortable with it. And loving yourself is never easy. So the process itself is not easy.
Right. And the thing that we have to like really do a really good job of remembering, which I hope like I bring especially to you, Mia and Jeremy, because I just talk to y'all a lot, is like constant and like just shame removal. Because like while we're doing these things, and we definitely know like we've been socialized into these systems, like the shame part is like the part that no one ever really sees, and like that's the part that sticks the longest because you're like, oh, I'm Black and a religious, we can't do this. Oh, I'm Puerto Rican and I'm Pentecostal, we don't do, like, you know, like just like the things like. And then Narlene, I don't know your exact ethnicity, but I do know that you said that you're Latinx, and same thing as Black. Like our communities, like, you know, like a person could love you, right? You could be like non-passing of something, right? Let's like remove cisness out of it, right? And then like we could be in our communities, as long as we never say we're a gay, like we'll kind of be passing, but like,
we'll be okay.
Like you'll be living with the same woman for 40 years and like that's just your roommate, but like you marry her and you want to have a wedding, now the whole family's choosing, and like you're like your favorite cousin that you had your whole entire life is the one that's speaking out the most against you. And it's like, but you was with me when I went to go visit my first girlfriend. What? Like now that we're old, and so I find like as a 36-year-old woman who I'm about to be 36 in August. So I struggle with other people dealing with my sexuality and how I'm a cis Black woman. I don't present as queer, even though like I have rainbow flags all over my house and I'm always doing gay shit. Like before I started working for the Pride Center, like unless you were on my direct community and my direct family, I would get into arguments with like especially men who have like a ownership over like the body of humans everywhere, like that I wasn't really, oh, you're not really gay, you got a son. And I'm like, and what does that mean? Like we can't procreate? Like what happens? And so like all those messages and everything, like we're still constantly dealing with, even though we know that they're bullshit, like we still are undoing them and like constantly have to remember that, hey, just like, you know, I'm out and proud, and you know, and this is how it is. And I think like sometimes we think like, like it will always come to an end, but because sexuality and gender is so fluid, that even if you're always a lesbian, like you may have dressed very masc at one point and now you dress femme or reverse, or now you're super androgynous, but you still like what you like. And then it just goes for me about the spectrums, because I know people who are straight who've never been in a queer relationship, but are dressed that they're super androgynous, and I've been just always waiting for them to be like, I'll be like, when you come, when you going on this, although this is the gay agenda, it's things are spectrums, and some people feel comfortable in mask clothes even though they're quote unquote born as a woman, and their sexuality and who they want to lay with is quote unquote like on par with normal society or whatever. And those things like that, and I met that person when I was an adult, and I was like, I'm still waiting, because it's been like a 7-year friendship, but I just think that that's her, and she's really comfortable, and she's like pregnant again, like in Tim's and like big jeans, and her boyfriend likes it, like, and it's just like, I never saw straight people in that form of the spectrum, like, but she's super queer adjacent. And I think like that also lets me know, like, maybe she did experiment when she was little, but she decided or like things different. I don't know. And it's like, you don't have to like harp on a thing and then dig your heels in if it's not you. And just people, no matter the age, are always just we're just growing. Like if you're not evolving, there's something's wrong. And it's really sad. So I just have one more question, and then we're going to end the panel. And it's kind of the reverse of what we were talking about before. Like, although what's your saving grace? What do you vision for your queer future? What do you want? What did you say? Everything?
Everything.
Yes.
Systemic heterophobia and advancing the queer agenda.
Love that. That's new. Love it.
Heterophobia, except, the 3 I's of like racism, it's going to be internalized heterophobia, it's going to be interpersonal heterophobia, and then institutional heterophobia. And we're going to do like, and it's going to be like systemic, and we're going to uplift the lives of queer folks. You heard of white supremacy, now get ready for queer supremacy. Period. Black queer supremacy. Period. Black and brown queer supremacy. Period.
Oh, I gotta drink some lemon water messing around with you. Jeremy,
I don't know why you're laughing. Like, you asked for the future. Like, the future is black and brown queer people and the destruction of heterosexuals. So what I said. I don't know why you're laughing. I want you to tell me what's funny about what I'm telling you.
Jeremy.
No, it's not that it's funny. It's a key. That's all.
It's a key. Jeremy, what's your amazing queer future look like?
Realistically, for me, right, I think it's always been a goal of mine as I get older to be able to have 2 things, right? One, develop a nonprofit that takes the work that we do at Queer Camp and does it all around 365 days of the year, right? That's always been my number one goal since we launched Queer Camp. And the second one is that I would love to open up an entire apartment complex that strictly houses Black and brown queer people that are young, that are being rejected by their families, homeless, or like just struggling and need some assistance and some love, right? And I would love for it to happen, right? So those have always been my 2 goals, and I swear to God, I'm not stopping until I get there.
I know that's right, because we're gonna make it happen, because we already in works for it. Stay tuned. Period. Yes, because as your older mother, is my job to make sure I support you and make sure that that gets done, because baby, you gonna save New Haven if you leave it up to me.
Love you for that.
I love you too. I really want to thank y'all and honor y'all for this beginning of the explorations of intersectionality. You can catch, actually each one of our panelists are going to be submitting and have already submitted blogs for our online Centerline magazine. And so this is a theme that I'm going to be continuing for the rest of 2020 of intersectionality with any of the work that I do at the Pride Center. So in the audience, please get used to seeing these beautiful faces, because you will see them again. And thank you again so much, y'all, for taking out some of your Saturday time. And it's a beautiful Saturday. If you haven't gotten any sun, make sure you go out and get some. And I am going to end recording now.